Hi everyone. Merry Christmas. It's a day after Christmas, I think, and I'm recording this. So happy holidays. I hope everyone's enjoying your time off from work and time with family, or maybe time to spend more time studying. I don't know, whoever you wish. And I did get a few comments. A couple people are kind of wondering, oh, what am I doing next? I guess I didn't really, well, I knew that I was going to continue studying languages, but I kind of had a break sort of for a few weeks while I played World of Warcraft. And yeah, anyway, so I want to continue with Korean more than Chinese. Although it's possible I might actually do both. So what I'm doing now, and this is kind of a thing that I'm trying out, and I guess until I've done it for a few months, then I'm not really going to know for sure how well I like it. But um, I've used Anki and Flashcards Deluxe, which is a very similar app, for years. Basically, I guess go back. It's going to be 2011. I get almost 10 years. I've been using these apps. Yeah, 2021, 2011. That's when I started. I think that's when I started studying Japanese. It was about in 2011, and I that's when I started using spaced repetition. Anki, as everyone knows, it has the advantage that it kind of spaces things out, and it tells you when to study stuff, and you can use multimedia with your flashcards and add pictures and native audio, and that obviously native audio especially can be really, really helpful. Um, but it has the drawback of forcing you to study something until you don't forget it. Forcing you. And of course, you can mark something on a leech, but I think everyone knows that they prefer not. For most people, I know some people I've seen online, they're like, oh, I mark leeches left and right. It's like I get something wrong twice in a row, and that's a leech. Yeah, that's a few people, and that's not most people. Most people are loath to mark something a leech because they know that Anki basically takes it out of the deck forever. And the whole point of using Anki is now gone to waste. It's like this thing's gone forever until you go in and manually restart it again or unleash it. It's yeah. Anyway, so I've used Anki for 10 years. Before that, what I did was I wrote stuff down in a notebook when I studied German and Spanish and French, mostly German. I just would look up words using a paper dictionary, write down the vocabulary in a notebook or on a piece of paper. I tried paper flashcards, but I found that very expensive very quickly because I was writing down everything. So I switched to the notebook, and I reviewed it some, but yeah, it wasn't my primary method for studying. I think the act of writing it down was the benefit that I got from it, and I would anyway. So I'm going back to the notebook. I've tried this once or twice over the last 10 years. I've been really loyal to apps. And I didn't get back into it, but I think this time I've kind of taken a break in part because I'm studying Japanese. I've mostly stopped SRSing. I've just looking stuff up, and I save the lists in Midori, which is a nice app, which has spaced repetition, which I play with occasionally, but it's not a daily habit at all. And of course, in part, that's because my Japanese has reached the point where I can do everything I need to. And if it doesn't get better, then I don't care. So, and some people, when they reach that point, they're like, well, I get better just by immersing. And you might get a little better, but if you're not deliberately studying, compare deliberately studying to not deliberately studying. I think everyone knows that deliberately studying is going to get you more progress if you're deliberately trying to get better. But yeah, so I stopped, and I kind of that helped me, I think, to break the habit with Anki a bit, because it's hard. Yeah, so I made lists. This is the list just very simple. Mostly vocabulary on the left and English on the right. This is Korean. I could possibly work out some way to do this with monolingual dictionaries, I guess, but that's a lot. The definition gets longer. If it's just a synonym, then that's really short, but the definition gets longer. For Korean, I'm not ready for monolingual anyway. And Although I like monolingual, mostly for the immersion effect. So when you go back to review, you're really immersing. I really like that a lot. That's the fact that some people kind of feel like, oh, you're translating when you memorize it. But I don't memorize the English anyway. I mean, you kind of do, but you really don't. You just kind of get the meaning, at least when I look at it. And because I know the English is just an approximation, I know it's not exact. And even if you get a definition in a monolingual dictionary, that's not exact either. But that is what a native speaker who's very educated, that's how they would describe it, obviously. So it's a bit better. But anyway, so that's my list. You really couldn't see. So most of the vocabulary on the left, English on the right. And I'm experimenting. I'm thinking I'm just going to make this like this notebook style approach for everything. So I can write down just vocabulary. I can write down sentences in here, and I can write down grammar in here. And I'm also, this is kind of important, at least for me. I find it useful and just makes it more fun, is to kind of just date. For this, it was the December 19 list, and that kind of turns it into kind of like a diary, a learning diary of sorts, because you can go back to, look at what you were studying on the 19th and you see all the vocabulary. Oh, this is what I was studying. That's kind of cool. Yeah. I'm experimenting a little bit with different colors because I saw in some other YouTube videos how other people use colors to kind of like for sentences. I might do purple. I like blue. Blue's my favorite color. That's why you kind of see all the blue here. So I kind of want to set it up so that the majority is blue. Then the other things they'll can be different colors. And you may have seen that because I am studying it quite a bit. In the past, I've used notebooks, I think with perforated paper, so that you could tear it out if you wanted to, but it didn't come out. Maybe just a little bit. The perforation ripped, but this is coming right out because I've gone back to review it so many times. So consequently, I just went to Walmart today and bought. It's a $2 notebook. I guess a composition notebook. I was actually thinking of getting like a journal style notebook because those are kind of premium quality, because this is my favorite hobby. This is what I like to do. Why not make it premium, make it a premium experience? But this is essentially the same as the premium notebook, but it costs $10 less. And I don't know how quickly I'll fill it up. I might even like this better. It's a little bit more lighter weight. So I like this. There's even cheaper options than this. This is $2. I guess you could just spend $1 or just slightly less than $1 if you wanted to. But yeah, I like this a lot. I'm pretty looking forward to this. So I like this so much. When I go to review, I just go down the Korean side and just check to see if I remember it. If I don't remember it, I might go down twice, depending on. I could just glance at this several times a day if I want to. And it's not like, oh gosh, it's not like with your reviews. This is kind of like guessing with Anki. When you sit down to do Anki, and I guess you could say like a leech, or if you're not in the mood to study or whatever, for whatever reason, you just keep getting this card wrong, or it could be several cards. You could just be in a rut. You're getting this batch of cards wrong, and you just can't seem to get one right. Well, when you're reviewing on a notebook like this, you just read it, and when you're ready to move on, you don't have to memorize it. There's no test. You just say, okay, you just move on. And you just kind of know that this was hard a little bit, but when you come back to it in a few hours, maybe it'll be better. And just whatever you could be done for the day because you did review. And I'm liking this a lot better. And we'll see how it goes. I will definitely keep doing this. I tried going back because occasionally I get, I was thinking about, my Anki or SRS flashcards deluxe, adding pictures, using audio. I'm like, oh, I kind of miss that. And I do kind of miss the audio, especially. The audio is really nice, and the pictures are not bad either. But the way it quizzes you and you have to get things right is just, you have to be, consequently, you got to be so careful on what you put into that deck, because you know that this deck, the algorithm is going to force you to memorize it. So you have to make cards that are appropriate to your level, and that you're picking words that your brain will agree these words are the next words in line that I need to know. And you can't just be like, oh, that looks interesting, I'm just going to put it in there. Or you can only do that just a little bit. You have to be very disciplined. With a notebook, you can put anything in there, and as you go back to review, it's not a problem. That's great. That makes learning fun. So like when I'm watching, so what am I doing with Korean? I'm currently watching movies. That's my favorite way to study Korean at the moment. Movies with subtitles. When I'm studying, I'm varying it up. So sometimes I'll just do like a full immersion and just turn off all subtitles and just watch it regular. It's way above my level, but if you're in the mood for it, and you can't, I think it's bad to force this. I think it's bad to, especially because I'm at my level. It's way above my level. But when you're in the mood to do it, you can sit down and enjoy a movie. You could actually, I mean, in theory, you could turn off the sound and just watch it. A lot of movies, you just from watching the people, listen to their, well, and if you have the sound off, but if you don't understand the language, but listen to their tone of voice, you kind of just get good at studying people and situations, and you can really figure out a lot that way. And of course, you're listening to the sound because, it's there to be listened to. So that's good. But you kind of need to be in the mood for that. If you try to force it as a thing every day, I think it's going to probably drive you nuts. So so I'm doing it without subtitles, with subtitles, sometimes with English and Korean subtitles. And that's when I have my notebook out and I'm just looking for words, sentences that look interesting, jotting it right down. And once I fill up a page, I think if I fill up one page in a day, that's usually plenty. And I'm like, okay, I did a good job today. And I'll just go back and review it. And I guess you could test English to Korean if you wanted to. I haven't done that except for just like once a little bit, just to kind of see how well is it sticking, is it? But that's not how I study too much. So Netflix, Viki's good. I'm using a Naver dictionary just to look things up and then writing down the definition of Naver. I also took italki. I had an italki tutor, Korean italki tutor that I was using. She unfortunately canceled on me so many times. I think it's probably just she's something going on with her, not with me. But being a tutor to a foreign language tutor is a tough job. And so maybe it's not me personally, but just the job itself. Anyway, she canceled enough times that I was like, I don't want to use italki anymore, but I'm going to get back to it. Oh, and I'm doing something kind of cool. The idea kind of came from I forget the channel name, Days of French and Swedish, or Swedish and French. Namely, when you do your italki tutors, basically what you really want is your own voice. When you come back, if you want to record it and then listen to it again, you generally don't want to listen to yourself unless you're working on pronunciation, which is not something I am. I know a lot of people are they worry a lot about their pronunciation. That's great. And I hope they get great pronunciation. I hope I get good pronunciation, but it unfortunately won't be because I am really concentrating on it. I think it's boring. Yeah. So what I do is on these italki lessons is when I record it, I just record the tutor's voice. And the app I use to record it actually does this very simply. I don't have to go in and edit it. I just press, what is it? Oh, anyway, I use iSound Recorder. It's not free. I think I have like a lifetime subscription though, and I've had it for 10 years, roughly. So it was like $20 or $30 when I bought it. Probably gone up in price. They call this feature Vox, and it records the sound on the computer, the speakers, not the microphone. I could change it to record the microphone too by having the microphone echo and then record both, but I really like it. So it records the sound on the computer. When the computer sound stops, it stops recording. And when the computer sound starts again, then it continues recording and it just continues the file, or it could make a new file. I have it set to continue the same file. So that's basically, I have a 30-minute sound file from this 1 hour lesson with the tutor. I guess I talked half the time, mostly in English though, and Japanese. This tutor, she speaks Japanese and English at a pretty high level. She's never lived abroad or even been abroad though. So it's not as fluent as it could be, but she seems really good. I'm hoping this tutor works out well. It's a little bit soon to say. My Korean, this is a problem. It's definitely with me, is that with my Korean, I guess I can't talk very well. And I just compared my Korean tutor experience with this Japanese tutor I had earlier in the day. Japanese, I'm fluent. I can talk about anything. Now, I can't talk about everything on a very high level, but I can talk about anything. And if the other person's a little bit patient, then if I have to, I'm like, wait, what's this word? I have to talk around it a little bit. That's no problem. I can do it very quickly and smoothly. And just the whole experience is just really pleasant for both me and the tutor. And it's like the tutor probably, I don't know if she even forgets that she's having a tutoring lesson. She's just talking to me, which is great. With the Korean though, it's like I'm just sitting there like quiet. I'm like, oh God, I have to say something. So I spit it out in English. She was very nice, and she spoke mostly Korean to me in response. I felt like my Korean listening skills went down a little bit because I haven't really studied Korean for a while, except for the past week. Yeah, and she was using grammar that I've never studied in a classroom. One thing about grammar in a classroom is that when you learn in a classroom, you do it better than when you generally when you learn it on your own, or so I found. So any grammar I've learned in a classroom, I know much better. If she says it to me in a conversation, it's much more likely to click. Any grammar I reviewed on my own, I probably didn't spend much time on it. I didn't drill it really. I just kind of like, I guess you could say I made an Anki card and just tried to space out the repetition as much as possible. Okay. So I'm doing the italki. I've got my sound files going with the lessons that I'm recording. I want to see how that goes and make some listening practice. Now I'm doing something else that I might be, hopefully doesn't surprise or scare you too much. I'm playing Warcraft in Korean. And I know that when I did this with Chinese, it completely failed and backfired. But turned into maybe a much needed break from language learning. Anyway, so I'm doing Warcraft in Korean. Now, the reason why I think this is okay, I'm hoping it's okay and won't backfire, is that number one, when I play the game, I am not listening to this a novel about video games in English. Like Master of Games is the novel I was listening to before. It's like never ending. So I was basically kind of like binging like a Netflix drama, like a TV show. I was like binging a TV show that never ended. So maybe it wasn't just the Warcraft. It was actually this, binging that novel that destroyed my language learning. And also the Chinese client, there's some limitations. You can't use any of the world chat channels, and that's because gold selling is such a problem from the Chinese users. So many people in China are playing Warcraft their job, and they sell in-game money for real money or in-game items for real money. That's just such a big problem that they did put a few limitations on the American version of the game. If you're on the Chinese client, then you can't use the world chat channels, which is not completely debilitating. You can still play the game for sure, and you can chat with your personal friends in your personal guild, just not in the world chat. That's, however, very important to me. And so that's another reason why I was very inclined to switch to the English. With Korean, that's not a problem. There's no limitations whatsoever. And also in Korean, my macros work. So there's macro commands that are really important to playing the game. And I can just type in the English equivalents and they work. I don't have to, I don't know if there's even, because the English ones work, maybe there aren't Korean equivalents. I don't know. And I know that finding a Korean website that explains how to do macros and scripts in Korean would be way above my level. So I can easily use the English, and that makes the game experience, basically I have no excuse to turn off the Korean. And so what I'm doing is I'm playing the game in Korean. I have my notebook open, and I'm just going in looking for words to add to my notebook. And once I fill that up with a page, then that's more study material. And I really like World of Warcraft. So even though some of the vocabulary is a little weird because it's in the game, that makes it, assuming that I'm picking vocabulary that they reuse a lot. There's obviously some of the quests, they might use some vocabulary that doesn't repeat, but a lot of it repeats a whole lot. So I'm motivated to learn it. And if I don't learn it, then I could cause my group to die, which I did last night. It didn't. I had a choice to make. Do you want to be resurrected, or do you want to be teleported back outside the dungeon instead? And I unfortunately didn't know which was which in Korean, and I picked the wrong one, and that was the end of that group. Um, yeah. Okay. So I think that's most of what. Oh, Link. I'm using Link a little bit right now. I am primarily focused on using Korean dramas to and World of Warcraft to get vocabulary and study material. And I'm also using this book. Now, if you study Korean, then you probably know that the Korean grammar and use books are very popular, and I think most people are familiar with them. The intermediate version is a lot more difficult than the beginner. I think the reason why this book series is so popular is because the beginner one was so well done and so easy to understand. You didn't need a teacher. You didn't need to do anything really to kind of remember it. You just had to read it, and it just kind of stuck. This one is more difficult, and I guess you could definitely argue that that's because the intermediate. That's why it's called intermediate. But the explanations are much longer. The example sentences are usually not just one sentence, but two sentences, and and they're longer, and they include more difficult vocabulary, and it's a tougher experience. But I'm trying to use that. What I'm doing is I'm copying it into my notebook, and again, that's not Anki. It's something I just read. I'm hoping that works really well, and I'll definitely update. I hate grammar, but grammar is so important. Grammar is, I think, maybe less important when you're just reading, although with Korean, because it's so different than English, you can get just completely lost. But when you try to speak, that's when it becomes super important, because without grammar, you just really, it's speaking us becomes so futile. Yeah. Okay. So that's everything I wanted to go over, and I will, I don't know, I'll update when I have something to talk about. And so that's it. Thanks very much for watching.